All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to today's another exciting session featuring one of our judges for the Space Science Challenge. But this time it would be for the rocketry. Yes, I know that we have done quite a lot of for space robotics and satellites and rocketry. There hasn't been much. So here you go. You have another session for rocketry as well. So I see that you guys are live, and I can see that you guys are tuning in. I can see the numbers popping up on my screen, but let me see that are you guys actually here or not. So if you guys are here, just write anything in the chat section, maybe hey, hi, yo, boom, or whatever. You can just go ahead and write down in the chat section, and with that I would understand that you guys are currently live. Yes, we are on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. So yep, go ahead and quickly write down in the chat section. So till the time you are writing them in the chat, I'll just quickly pull up our special guest for tonight, and who is none other than Mr. Anirudh Mukund Saraf, who is one of our judges in the Space Science Challenge in the rocketry category. So please allow me to introduce Mr. Anirudh to you all. So Anirudh is a space propulsion engineer at the German Aerospace Center (DLR), currently working on design, development, and testing of rocket turbopumps and their auxiliary systems. He has a master's degree in space science and technology from Luleå University of Technology, and he has a prior experience working on nano-satellite thermal design, analysis, and testing with his primary objective on tackling challenges related to space exploration. And also, he is a mentor at Spaceonova. And yep, and you're judge in the rocketry category. I think I've already covered up. So, yep, thank you so much, Mr. Anirudh, for tuning in for today's session and taking out uh, time for this live session from your busy schedule, and also for being a judge in the Space Science Challenge 2022. Thank you so much, Anirudh, for tuning in.
Sautik, thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, it's been a great time with Spaceonova so far, and I hope we can have a very nice interaction today.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, even I hope the same. All right. So, okay, I can see a few comments in the chat, and yeah, let's keep that coming. No worries about that. And also, you can go ahead and give reactions. Those are also visible to me. So, yeah, you can do that as well. All right. Whenever you feel like, you can go ahead and react to it as well. That is for the LinkedIn, YouTube guys. There is no such reactions thing as of now. But yeah, no worries. We will get that soon enough. All right. So, Mr. Anirudh, well, as when I was introducing you, I've seen that you work with so many places, and currently what you're doing is just phenomenal. But I would like to know that how did you step into the space sector? How did you, what inspired you? And could you just go ahead and maybe give a glimpse on your journey in the space sector and how you gain so many diverse experiences?
Yeah, sure. I think it started somewhere in my 10th grade when I was asked what I want to be. I think many of us had this dream of becoming an astronaut, and so was I. I had a dream of becoming an astronaut, which I still want to. But I think that's where it started. That I started thinking about space engineering. Um, but down the line, I chose like a more broad field of engineering to start with, which would be mechanical, which is I think a very good foundation to begin with. And in the third year of my mechanical engineering is when I really decided, okay, this is the time I need to focus on space engineering because that's what I want, that's where I want to be, and that's what I realized in my third year. And I started looking for master courses. I did look up a few universities in India and also abroad, and finally I decided to get into the Space Master course, which is like an Erasmus course, which happens in multiple cities in Europe. So we started in Germany first for one semester, then we went to Sweden, and then I personally did my master thesis in Denmark. So yeah, I've been going around in Europe quite a bit, and this is the reason why I joined this course because you get a lot of networking opportunities and you get to meet a lot of people within the industry, within academia. So yeah, that's what drove me to choose this master's course. During this course, I gained the course was very broad, so we learned a lot about space technology in general, different fields where we could go in, from space dynamics to control and telecommunications, even space physics. So it was very, very interesting to know that these exist within space, the space industry. I gained a lot of interest basically in thermal engineering because I had this mechanical engineering background. So there was a lecture in space thermal engineering which was given during the course, and I found it super interesting because within space thermal engineering, especially for satellites, it includes everything. It's not just space thermal, but you need to know orbits. You need to know how the mechanical interfaces are connected. You need to know which are the mission phases, how the electronics are working, how much they're dissipating. So I found it super super interesting that all of these are linked, and so I thought, okay, this is something I could do, and that's why in my masters, I in my last semester or the third semester, I took a special course in this, and then ended up getting a master thesis in something which is similar. So I worked as a space thermal engineer intern in GomSpace in Denmark. That's where I worked on nano-satellites a bit, and then got hired there. Worked for 1.5 year in the same field, doing thermal analysis, testing of nano-satellites. Then, before all of this, actually, I had done like an internship at DLR in rocket propulsion, which I had also liked. And after this, I got an opportunity to come back to DLR and work more on thermal aspects of turbopumps, which I'm doing right now. So yeah, these are the different experiences which I got during my short career, let's say, so far. Yeah, and yeah, that's this is my story for coming to space technology or exploration.
Okay, that is firstly okay. That's just phenomenal. And yep, I've seen and as you've already said, you have traveled a lot of around YouTube, Europe. You've traveled a lot around YouTube, and you've gained so many experience and network with so many people. And yeah, so we'll come back to that question. We'll come back at the end learning about what are some of the career opportunities in Europe as well, because I think that is something which audience would definitely be interested in, since Europe is getting a lot of attention as well. So yeah, we'll come back to that question in the end. But now, so yeah, that was fantastic for describing, and so I think we already have a brief idea of what you are doing and your work. So, all right. So, since you have mentioned that you are working on propulsion, basically liquid propulsion, so let's start from the very basic. That's from the engine. So, how do we exactly decide that should we take a solid type or a liquid type when we are going with the propulsion?
Well, this is an interesting question because right now we have so many different types of rockets. Like solid and liquid are just two of them, the chemical ones, and now we have
Huh?
electric and hybrid and whatnot. So it's a good question to begin with, I would say, because the way I see it is always okay. What do we need at the end? What is the outcome? Why do we need this rocket for? So from that you draw requirements. Okay, so we need this. So we need to get off Earth first, then reach the orbit maybe, or we need to go from one orbit to the other. So based on these, based on the knowledge what we have about the existing rockets and their classification, we can decide, okay, this is the rocket we need. I'll give you an example. Perhaps with the solid rockets, they are not super, they are generally more easier to work with. They are easy to ignite. They are easy in terms of storing. For example, they have pretty high thrust, so they are perfect for a first stage rocket engine. Whereas when it comes, but the disadvantage of them is it has to be with control, because once you ignite them, they go poof all the time, gone. So you can't control them as such. You can control, let's say, the thrust profile, but not exactly have a control that, okay, I want to switch it on, off, and everything. Whereas liquid propulsion is much more flexible in that way, that you can stop it and start it when you want. And these are the different things which you see when you choose whether you want to choose a solid one or a liquid one.
All right. So I think okay. Thank you for answering that question. Not only solid liquid, then I think we can similarly extend it to I think hybrid and electrical.
Yes.
And is there something else? Nuclear? No.
Yeah, oh, yeah, nuclear as well. But right now, I think there's a lot of safety issues with nuclear rockets. So there is some progress, but I don't think
Uh-huh.
it's being used yet. So I think we need to be sure that okay, nothing's going to happen. Then we can definitely use it. It has a lot of potential.
All right. So, okay, thank you so much for answering that question. All right. So your major work was on turbo pumps, and I believe that turbo pumps is something to do with liquid and propulsion, but I don't really have a clear idea on what exactly is a turbo pump. Could you please or could you please explain very brief that what exactly is a turbo pump? What does it do?
Yeah, sure. Within a rocket, so the main purpose of having this is that you need to supply the fuel to the combustion chamber and then expel it out after combustion at a high speed. So this is
Right.
what gives thrust in a rocket. So the feeding of this fuel and oxidizer to the combustion chamber is done by the propellant feed mechanisms. And the feeding mechanism themselves can be of two types, but and one of them is using turbopumps. Basically, turbopumps are rotary machines. They have on one end an impeller and on the other end a turbine in the simplest form, and they have a shaft in between which is rolling on bearings. And these are the pump and turbine side is separated by seals. So this is the basic schematic of a turbopump. And what it does basically is takes fluid, which is either fuel or oxidizer from the propellant tanks, raises its pressure, and then sends it to the combustion chamber. This is the purpose of a turbopump. Yeah, the turbopumps can be quite complex in construction. They have extremely fine margins of sealing, and they have high precision bearings. So yeah, it's a structure, or it's a machine which is highly complex, but it reduces, let's say, the weight of the rocket.
Okay, so I believe that so its major objective is just to reduce the weight of the rocket and or
No, the major objective is to supply the fuel and oxidizer at high pressure. So,
all right,
as I said already, that the more the thrust we want, the more the combustion chamber pressure we need. So, a high pressure combustion leads to high exit velocity of the combusted gases, and to supply this pressure, you need the turbopump. So yeah, if you just store this high pressure in a tank, you would need very high. The thickness of the walls need to be very very high.
yes,
Instead of that, you take this fuel or oxidizer and pump it to a higher pressure. Yeah,
all right. Okay, and in turn, we are reducing the weight since we no longer
yeah,
need those thick walls
thick
anymore. So we're
walls. Yeah,
reducing the weight, and
exactly.
yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
totally.
understood. Thank you so much for answering that question so beautifully. All right, so okay, so we have these turbo pumps who are doing phenomenal job. So I believe there should be some alternatives to turbo pumps as well. And before turbo pumps, what was traditionally being used?
Yeah. So feed systems generally are divided into two types. One is the by pressurizing the tank itself. For example, by using some other gas, you pressurize the tank and then supply this pressurized tank. So this was what generally first used as a liquid for a liquid propulsion engine. So yeah, all you do is have your fuel in a tank, use a separate gas like helium to pressurize this fuel or oxidizer, and then push it out of the tank at a high pressure, and then send it to the combustion chamber. So this was what was used before, and since the but if you need a really high thrust, then this won't suffice, or your tank would be really big and heavy. So that's why turbopumps came into picture in 1930s or 40s when they decided to um, design one and manufacture one. And from then on, they have been used regularly in rockets.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you so much for answering that question. I think we got a fair idea of uh, what was actually traditionally being used. All right. So, right, since we are discussing about turbo pumps as well, I believe that before we go ahead for this turbo pumps, I'd like to ask you that are there any simulation softwares which can be used for visualizing these turbo pumps?
Oh yeah, definitely. Turbo pumps are very, very complex. They have multiple physics going on within them. On one side, we have cryogenic fluid. Of course, in cryogenic turbopumps, we have cryogenic fluid, which are super cold fluids. So and on the other side, you have highly like you have hot gas, which is running the turbine, and we need to know what is happening within the turbopump because these create a very high thermal gradient between the two sides, and this thermal gradient can be detrimental in some cases. So for this, we need a lot of simulations. This is just one part. Then the other part is bearings. We need to know how the bearings behave. We need to know how the seals behave. So for this, we use quite a lot of softwares. Generally, in the beginning, in starting phase of this design, all the calculations are made in like using self-made code or already existing codes, which are generally in Python or MATLAB or something. And moving on, we also use some tools like Ecosim, which is a 1D tool with which we do 1D simulations of performance or get the performance curves at different conditions. And then in the second phase, in more detailed phase, we can use mostly all CFD softwares or FEM softwares like ANSYS, for example, is generally used everywhere. So such tools are pretty useful also to gain insights into how our turbopump is going to work later.
All right. Okay. So, all right. So, answers, I think, yeah, that is some software which is majorly being used, and
Uh,
also the codings and languages always exist. All right. So, I think we got an idea how we can go ahead and visualize this as well. And all right. Yep. And also, guys, one more thing. If you guys want to ask any questions, you can go ahead and mention them in the chat section. And yes, we can. We would definitely pick up these questions as well. And all right. Okay, so Saurav, Saurav, you're not the only one watching, to be honest, because you're on YouTube and there are other people on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, there are many others watching with you as well, Saurav. All right. Okay. So that is great. So we got to know about simulations as well and what pumps actually are. But and as you said that they're very complex to designs and a lot of physics and a lot of other things already happening. So I believe that we can also go ahead and optimize the design. So how do you actually do the optimization of the turbo machinery design?
yeah, if we are talking about a project, then if it's realistic, then always money and time comes into the picture. And during if this comes into the picture, for example, for startups, they have to really quickly develop turbopumps. Then the design optimization takes a second step. You just need a functional one. So when money and time comes into picture, I think a fast developed turbopump is what people need. But if you're just talking about technical optimization, then there are many ways to do this. One of the biggest challenges, I would think, would be cavitation in turbopumps. What I mean by cavitation is in the inlet of the pumps, if the pressure gets too low, then
Mhm.
there is blockage for fluid to get in. And this can lead to detrimental drop in the outlet pressure, for example, which is, yeah, and also probably some issues at the inlet itself near the impeller. So cavitation is something which we need to avoid all the time. So we design the turbo pumps for cavitation on the pump side, and we can optimize these based on the design parameters such as, okay, what should be the speed of the turbo pump, what should be the diameter of the turbo pump, what should be the of the pump impeller, for example, and what should be the optimal pressure which we get out. So there's always a design curve which goes, okay, and these are decided, of course, by what is the requirement on the outside, on the outlet of the turbo pump. So yeah, there are many ways we can do this, but of course there's limitation for everything. For example, you can't reduce the weight all the way down to zero, which you can't because you need to also have the strength when the turbo pump rotates. It should sustain itself from breaking apart.
Okay.
So on the structure side, you need to have just optimized thickness of the blades and stuff. I would say that would be an optimization. On the rotordynamic side, you would have the rotational speed because you should also consider what happens when there's resonance in the shaft, for example. So yeah, rotordynamics wise optimization, then there is pressure. So you want to reduce losses, like aerodynamic losses within your pump and turbine. So yeah, you would if you're considering design optimization of a turbopump, then you would consider all of these all together. It's going to be challenging, but it's or you would do, okay, let me just look at the pump and optimize this. And that is what I am doing right now in I mean,
Uh-huh.
my team is doing right now in our project, which is called Lumen, and it's a upper stage engine. It's a demonstrator engine, and the goal of this engine is, or demonstrator engine, is basically to do this. We try to look at each component separately and see how best we can get, how what is the best output we can get from that component. And yeah, this is the optimization work we will be doing in the future as well. It's a very good question, actually. Thanks for that.
All right. Well, okay, that was so many things which is happening, and as you have already mentioned a few times, that just makes it more challenging. But we all know that how challenging space is. We all know what is the number of what is the amount of uncertainty in space, and that is something which rather motivates us to do. Right.
Hmm.
That is something which keeps us going. That even though it is challenging, let's face it as well. All
Yeah.
right. Saurav, I would actually skip that question for now because nanosatellites is it's very different from what we are discussing now, and on top of that, business around nanosatellites is again very different from what we are discussing now. So maybe this question is a good one. Maybe we can discuss in some other session, not in this one. But yeah, for now, I'll be skipping that question, Saurav. Thank you. And yes, Tiffany, um, even if you're not participating in the space science challenge, it is completely fine because these sessions are not only for the participants of the space science challenge but open to everyone because it's always an opportunity to learn. And yes, and I hope that you learn something new from this session. In case you have anything to ask, you can go ahead and mention them in the chat and we'll happy to take them out. All right. Okay. Thank you, Tiffany, for commenting. And yeah, and same goes for Aditya as well. All right. So, okay. So we have understood basically what turbo pump does and how difficult it is and challenging, but still, yeah, what is the advantages of turbo pumps as well? All right. So, could you please also go ahead and give a few latest innovations in the propulsion industry, like not latest as in like not 1 2 years, quite a couple of decades back. What has been the innovations in the propulsion industry?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I have to talk in particular about turbopumps, because that's what I work with, I would start with going electric, because this is not was what this was not done before. So right now, as I explained, to make it simple, assume a shaft. On one side you have a turbine, and one side you have a pump impeller. So
Right.
this turbine uses the power from high energy gases, takes this energy, converts them into rotational energy, and then on the other side, the pump uses this energy to increase the pressure of the fluid which enters the pump. So if you remove the turbine and add an electric motor there, it becomes an electric turbopump. And this is something new, and this was not possible before because we didn't have the technological advancement of the batteries that we have now. And this is quite interesting to go forward with, how, especially looking at how where batteries are going today. It's quite amazing to see how much power density that they are capable of now. So this is something which I'm looking forward to. I also see this quite a lot of this in recent space conferences, where people are working on the development of this. Of course, I see challenges with electric turbopumps, but yeah, that's what we are here to solve. So yeah, that was one aspect about, I would say, innovations or in turbopumps. In general, I would say that reusability is something which has become really popular, and everyone is working on reusability. I think SpaceX is doing an excellent job at this, and this helps in turn to make space more accessible. So it makes it cheaper, It makes more people can put their experiments in space, and this broadens our chance to experiment. And this is after all what we need to go forward. Apart from this, what else can I think of? Yeah, of course, we can. What I see recently, which is happening at the place I work, is using AI. That's something new. AI for rockets, and what I see in DLR right now is how they're using AI for control valves in a rocket engine, and that's something I find fascinating. And if somebody is interested about it, you can write me and hit me up, and maybe I can provide you some papers to read.
Right, yeah. I mean, first of all, yeah, I'm personally interested when it comes to learn more about AI, whatever is used, because mostly whatever I've seen is mostly in the space exploration part. We do normally do use AI, but we are still using this in controlling the walls. That is something I have never knew before. That is, I think, definitely interesting. And yes, I think Tiffany also agrees that electric is a new frontier, and she's currently working on an electrified powertrain flight demonstration program. So, Tiffany, that's fantastic what you're currently doing, and we hope that we hope all the very best for your demonstration program. And okay, Satya Silyan is asking a nice question. She's asking about, or they are asking about. More about something known as plasma propulsion engine and a bit of
Hmm.
techniques. I believe that I think technique should be maybe related to propulsion. I think so. That
Yeah,
is what there is techniques. But yeah, plasma propulsion engine is something which even I've not heard about.
yeah. No, this is actually one more very nice. What do you say? Innovation in space propulsion recently. I mean, not recently. Recently, this has been happening for quite some time, but
Uh-huh.
plasma and electric propulsion are something which is a new, let's say, new space propulsion techniques. These are, I would classify them as high ISP. ISP is basically um, what you can get out of a, or what thrust you can get off a per unit kg of a propulsion propellant. So these, of course, I'm not no expert in plasma propulsion, but what I can say is that these will help in deep space exploration. So these definitely the power what they give or the thrust that they give would not be helpful in taking us from Earth to space, but once we're in space, these are things which we would use. Plasma propulsion is one of them which we could use to go around within space. Techniques wise, I think the what do you say? There are a few methods which you can use for plasma propulsion. The details of which I exactly can't tell you right now because I also have to look up. But yeah, I if you need, we can get in contact and then maybe I can tell you more about it.
Yep, definitely. And I think that this is okay.
Um,
You're on LinkedIn, right,
yeah,
Satya? So this can easily you can
but
see it onto the
sorry,
description as
what
well
I
as
can
here.
tell Satya is that plasma propulsion, the concept I can also explain. I mean, the techniques, of course, are new and there are quite a bit. But basically, you create a plasma by heating gas up, like really, really to a high temperatures, and then you expel this at very high speeds, and that's what creates the thrust. The techniques, unfortunately, I am unaware of the details.
All right. Well, so thank you so much, Satya Salan, for asking that question. And okay, thank you. And all right, so we can now proceed forward. All right, so guys, if you still have any questions, do feel free to write them, and we'll pick up all these questions. All right. So, all right. So we have talked about the latest innovations. We talked a bit about turbopumps, propulsion, how they are necessary, why are we using them, the advantages, how we can optimize them, and so overall we get the entire idea of how they are propelling forward. So let's ask a few general questions, and that would be let's say that there's a normal person who is from a non-engineering background, so how can anyone get started in rocketry?
Um, okay, well, for students, I would say join teams in your college. I was part of aerodynamics team in aero design team in my college, and that's where I learned a lot, which we don't generally learn in classes. So you might take, for example, rocket propulsion in your bachelor's or something, but what you will learn in these teams is practical aspects. Apart from this, I was also listening to Divyanshu the other day, and I found it really fascinating what he is doing. And that could be something which is model rockets. I think that that's something which I haven't done, and I would love to. And anyone who has a chance should be able to, and that's what Rocketeers are doing. So I think it's an amazing thing. That could be something which where you could start. But once you are like a little bit more serious, you want to learn seriously about rockets and rocket propulsion. I would definitely say a master's degree in this would be perfect with probably doing internships in institutes or research institutes or in the industry. I think that would be like really getting serious into rocketry. But to get started, I think model rockets are the best. Just go and fly them. Of course, with regulations and be safe.
Definitely. And yes, Divyanshu, that was just, I think that was like second, just before that we had with Miss Monica, and before that we had with Mr. Divyanshu. So yeah, he's the CEO of Rocketeers, who make model rockets, and they have made it quite cheaper compared to the other available model rocket, and that's a part of Startup India. They are also startup who are in India, so they are doing phenomenal as well, and you can definitely go check those model rockets out, as also Mr. Anirudh has said. All right, so I can see a question. Yep, I'll pick up that question in a moment. And before that, we were discussing about how we can get started. You're talking about internships as well and the master's degree, but you're coming forward to internships and also. Could you please go ahead and illustrate a few career opportunities in this domain in India and Europe?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think I would start with opportunities beginning at an academic level. So I would say the best would be to join, as I said, design teams, and from there move towards a little bit of industry or research institutes, see what people are researching on, and try to work as a research assistant or something. This would be like to get into the industry, to get into the technology, what's happening. This would be the first one. This can be done both in India and in Europe. Both places it's possible. And I'm pretty. I know that space propulsion is growing quite a bit now, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities. So yeah, it's possible. Second thing, industry wise, I would say in Europe, the industry works pretty close with academia. I know that there are some student teams which in their masters or yeah bachelors also they work on these teams and they work at the industry. For example, University of Stuttgart, University of Delft, they all work on developing a real rocket with a real payload, and this is supported by the industry. So that is something which you could look at. The third thing is the big industries or big companies like the one I work in, DLR or Ariana Group or yeah, OHB, Avio. There are so many of them in Europe which are all working on amazing projects right now, and that could be one place you could also look for a job. Other aspects would be, or other places where you could look for opportunities would be, I would say, government organizations. Many new European governments are getting into the space industry, and this is definitely an opportunity where you could join them and start working on their uh, propulsion systems. Um, what else? Startups. How can I forget startups? Yeah, both in India and in Europe, I think there are so many small launchers coming up with just not just small launchers. Actually, there are also let's say space transportation, not just from Earth to the to orbit or low Earth orbit, but also from orbit to orbit. There are so many new startups. These are in space transportation systems. So there's a lot of scopes for propulsion right now. So these are some of the opportunities, but there are definitely more. The more I dig
I'll
deeper, I think I can find more.
definitely. So, as you have mentioned startups, which instantly brings me to my another question, and that is, what are your some opinions regarding the new space rocket companies that have emerged recently?
I think it's fantastic. This is not something which was there when I left India to Europe, and how suddenly there's a boom, which I find fantastic. It should grow. I wish more and more private companies come and join ISRO in their endeavor to become much more bigger, a bigger space entity. As strong, I mean, it's already a big one, but I want India to grow even more in the space frontier. This is excellent.
All right, so that was fantastic. Thank you. And I think, okay, we have a question from Saurav who's
Mhm.
asking that, okay, he's asking that is possible to build the perfect eco-friendly fuel for propulsion systems in the future?
Um, yeah, there has been a talk of sustainability and let's say green propulsion. It has been going on for quite some time, especially in Europe, and there have been talks about how we can make rocket propulsion green. Um, yeah, if we go and look up for green propulsion, you'll definitely find quite a lot of new technologies or new propellants. Right here at DLR, we also work at a lot of new propellants, which can be eco-friendly also, and still provide the same thrust as we would get from normal conventional rocket propulsion sources. So it's definitely happening, and it's a good question because we all need to go towards eco-friendly fuels.
Right. So, okay, thank you so much, Saurabh, for asking that question. And thank you so much, Anirudh, for answering that question. Yep, we definitely do need an eco-friendly, perfect. Yep, definitely perfect is something which we aim for perfection. Thank you so much for that question. All right, so since we're almost approaching towards the end of the today's session, so before we conclude with the session, any advice for the participants of the Space Science Challenge 2022, which they should keep in mind?
I think that this Space Science Challenge is the perfect testing ground of knowledge for students and also professionals who are entering this challenge. I think it's a great opportunity. I think you should use it for coming up with new ideas, out of the box ideas towards all. So you have for rocketry, you have for satellites, you have for space robotics. I think this is the perfect place to exhibit your talents and your interest towards space technology. Um, what I would also say is that this should be your step towards testing yourself whether you like space technology. So spend as much time as you have on this. Really put your efforts, get your head into it, put the space engineer hat on, and think like a space engineer, and yeah, do the best to win this challenge. I'm sure you all will enjoy during this time, and I hope you all very best and a lot of success.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that advice. And yep, that is what is needed currently. All right. So before we wrap up with the session, any book or movie recommendations from your end, which is very inspiring for you, or which you would like to recommend to the audience?
Hmm. Yeah, there's so many of them. And yeah, and some of them of course have a very lasting impression and motivation, and some of them have for a very short time, and then you move on, and then you read a new book, and then it happens. But I think for me it has been Wings of Fire by the story of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Um, I don't know. I think it's impossible to not be inspired by him. And I read this book long ago, but of course, I don't know the details of the stories inside. But the main key aspects, what I learned from that book, the humility of the man, the positive thinking you get from the book is just amazing. So I would say, to begin with, Wings of Fire. That's something I would suggest anyone to read. And coming to movies, I love space movies. It's a no-brainer to say that. But one which really I liked watching and also inspired me a bit was October Sky. It's the story. Have you watched it? It's a story about a son of a miner, and he sees Sputnik in the sky, and he gets inspired by it, and then goes on to become a NASA engineer.
Yes, I've heard the name. I do recall that name, but the story I think I've not yet seen. But I'll definitely go ahead and do
Yeah,
watch that movie.
it's definitely
I've,
worth a watch.
I've heard of the name before. Yes, I do recall that. All right. Okay. Well, I think with that, we actually have come to the end of today's session, and also we have come to the end of the series of live session with all the Space Science Challenge judges. So we have conducted every live session with all the judges of the Space Science Challenge. In case you have missed any one of them, don't need to worry. You can visit our website, and all of the links are there. All of the recordings are there with all the judges. You can go forward and rewatch the session in case you missed any of them in whatever category you want. You can go ahead and rewatch those sessions, and I hope that you love the sessions which we are providing to you. And well, thank you so much, audience, for the support which you have given us. And also, you guys will be meeting very soon, and you guys will be also meeting Anirudh very soon. That just another month you'll be meeting him, and that would virtually you'll be meeting him during the grand finale. So you want to interact more with Anirudh? It's very easy. Just qualify for the grand finale, and there you are. Uh, Mr. Anirudh will be there for you to listen to you whatever you have to say. All right. So I think with that we have come to the end of this sessions. Once again, thank you so much, Anirudh, for this wonderful session, and thank you so much, audience, for this. And we would meet very soon. Same platform or different platform where we will communicate with you. Follow us on LinkedIn as well, subscribe on YouTube, and stay connected to us, and also on Instagram as well. We'll be seeing you guys very soon. Till then, everyone, cha cha, take care of yourselves and stay hydrated, and have a great day or a great night ahead. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.